A downside with the Pantorouter is as the bit moves around the tenon, it throws wood chips in pretty much every direction, and that makes dust collection very difficult. So Cooldeep has sent me a prototype of a dust collection thingy, and that fits on here like so. And it directs all the exhaust air from the router down this way, having got a fair bit of space in here to let that air go out this way. And it's got a hookup for a shop vac right here, and then there's a long brush attachment, and those clip onto here to help contain the dust. And to my surprise, it actually works. But there's a few problems with it. The most annoying I find is when working from here, I can't see the router bit, so I'm kind of working blindly. Next problem is this shroud comes forward of where the router collet is, which means I can't use that last bit of the router bit, because otherwise I end up hitting whatever workpiece I happen to have with this thing here. It's got a 40mm dust port on here, so I made this little adapter piece that fits on here, and then I can plug in the 2.5-inch hose that goes to my dust collector. The chips tend to accumulate inside this brush right on the bottom, and this sucks out the top, so it's not very good at picking up the chips that accumulate here. So I'm thinking I should try to build something like this that has a big connection and it goes to the bottom instead. Now, wood is probably not the best material for this, but it's easiest for me to work with, so I'll try that. Here's my design so far. This fits over the router, so the router bit ends up here. And this is going to be mounted some distance away from here, and this will be closed and air will be sucked through a channel here. So that still leaves about 7mm for the air to get out and behind the router, and I've got 28mm on the front to play with, but that includes room for the brush rim. I just drilled this hole a little bit bigger, which allows me to get a little bit closer to the router, and I should still have enough space for the air to come out. And I also glued some blocks of wood on here, which is where the mounting screws are, so that'll hold it a little bit better. Now with this on here, I need something to cover this area here to form a channel. So I figure I'll just put this on here and trace around it. Now I still need to hold this brush, and on this one that Cooldeep made, there's a nice hook ledge that the brush kind of hooks around on, and the brush has got a gap so you can get it around that. I can't very well make that out of wood. Instead I'm going to use some small countersink screws, and the countersink is going to sort of act as a hook. I just beveled the edge of this, which hopefully will make it easier to get that brush out when it's right up against here. But before I glue this part on, I have to make sure these screw holes here are good. Looks like the accuracy of my measurements was adequate. I need a big enough hole in here for the screwdriver and this screw to pass through. And to prevent a lot of air leakage that way, I'm just going to glue this block of wood in here. For now I'm only screwing the front on because I might still want to change it, and next I need to figure out how to put the hose on here. But since this is always going to be hanging down, I figure I might as well put it on an angle like this. Well, I just realized if I put it on like this, it's going to end up hitting the table. So I do have to come out more like this. So the hose end goes in here, and I can clamp that down, and then that fits on here once the glue dries. So I've had to mount this thing way off center, otherwise this part here is going to hit the table. But of course that means I have a big hole right here. So I'm just going to close that by gluing another piece of plywood on the back. Well, we still have a huge heap of shavings in here. I think the hole mostly got plugged up. Yeah, it looks like it might be plugged up. I'll repeat the same test with this setup here, and I've had to extend the bit forward a little bit just so I can clear the edge of this thing here. We also have a heap of shavings in here, just like with my homemade one, but there's no chips down here, so in this regard this one is definitely better. And looking in here, it might be getting towards plugged up, but I think it's still okay. Let's try cutting another one. It looks like our chip holding capacity has been exceeded and it's completely plugged up. Now I'm not exactly making it easy on dust collection here because I've been running the router at just 13,000 RPM and I'm cutting a fair amount at a time, which means I get these huge chips. The other problem is I'm running this with just my homemade small dust collector, and this thing only has a fraction of the suction that a shop vac has in terms of pressure. So a shop vac might be able to just suck a clog through here. So a shop vac is definitely what you want to use here, not a dust collector. So I thought I'd try cutting the same tenon again, this time in much shorter increments and going at 20,000 RPM instead of 13,000 RPM. And that made for much shorter chips, which are much less prone to plugging up, so there's no plugging up that happened here, and I'm pretty sure this would be good for quite a few more. I don't think this would fill up like it did last time. The higher RPM also made for smaller chips, although that did cause some of them to get thrown out a little bit. But there's, well, hardly any dust down here. Well, that was filmed a few months ago, and you can see I've gotten a haircut since then. And since then, Cooldeep has also finalized the design of this dust collection shroud and put it into production. And it's flatter than the old one, so even with this router, it doesn't cut down on depth of cut as much. It's also very smooth on the inside, and you can see if it clogs up. As for this thing, I think this one's a failure because it obstructs the airflow at least as much as this one or this one does, and with a complicated path, it's just way too prone to clogging up. So in my next video, I'll be trying out this dust collection gadget, and we'll see how well it works.